Hi everyone, Almighty Cthulhu here. Just wanted to talk about the riots going on in Chemnitz. I already recorded this video once, but it was kind of off the cuff, so I thought I'd do it again now that my thoughts are a little bit more condensed. If you guys haven't heard though, there's been anywhere from 10,000 to a couple hundred people marching in the streets of a small town in Bavaria, Germany, Deutschland. With the numbers being that sparse, I can imagine, I've seen some of the pictures. This place seems to be about as big as Akron, Ohio. Maybe a little bit bigger than that. And if you guys don't know where that is, it's, we have a bunch of rubber, and a guy called LeBron James came from here. Not into basketball, so I'm sure everybody's heard of him, though. But if 3,000 people were marching through the streets, and this happened when, I believe it was an Iraqi and a Somalian refugee. I could be wrong on that. They killed somebody, or who was trying to stop them from, who was kind of a hero if he's trying to stop them from raping. It could have been sexual assault, or it could have been sexual harassment. I haven't quite. Some people are saying one, and some people are saying another. It's one of those two things. But he got stabbed to death for trying to stop this Somali refugee and an Iraqi refugee, which, funny enough, not from Syria, where the war's happening right now, and why they started letting in all of these refugees. Probably economic migrants, I would guess. Not quite from a war zone, but it depends on what you think of Somalia, I guess. From what I hear, it's a little bit of a shithole. And the United States definitely did not help in Iraq. But they stabbed this man to death. And he seemed, from what I've heard, he was a Cuban German. This is someone who is of Cuban descent, but they were born in Germany. This is the victim I'm talking about right now. And they are outraged. So they seem to be, these people protesting in the streets, and of course there might be some Nazis there. It's being called far-right, which, if, I don't believe that the far-right in Germany, aside from, like, neo-Nazis, which exist everywhere, I'm sure, except for maybe in the Far East and Russia, or places that are filled with communists because they can't stand Nazis. Anywhere that has any semblance of free speech, I'm going to assume will have some crazy people out there. But if it's 3,000 to 5,000 people, which it seems to be, like, that would be a pretty safe guess to where this is at, I don't think all of them are Nazis. That's a lot of Nazis. There's a lot of Nazis down in Chile, if you listen to Joe Rogan talk, but that's an entirely different story, which is pretty cool. I would suggest, it was Ted Kennedy on Joe Rogan, but it's a pretty cool little thing, or terrifying, depending on how you look at it. But these guys in Germany are definitely not Nazis. They don't look like Nazis. They're not in the uniform. They don't have the red tags on their arms. They're not Zeke Heiling or anything like that. And what I was saying, the far right in Germany is probably about a moderate conservative in America. Maybe even a centrist in America, with the way things have shifted recently. Who knows? I guess we'll see in this upcoming election cycle here. But so they're further left out there than we are here. At least that's how we perceive them in America. From them to us, we look further right. So even if they are far right, I wouldn't imagine that these people's opinions are too far from someone who doesn't want illegal immigrants coming into our country illegally. Keyword there. Especially if they're killing people, which seems to be happening all the time in Europe now. You hear about it all, like, it's Londonistan now. It's, the Paris, from what I hear, is a shithole. There's it's not Paris anymore. Even some of the bigger liberal movie stars talk about how they used to have houses in Paris, but now they don't go there anymore, which is sad. It's really, really sad. And this might be indicative of a larger problem in all of the European states, of the parts of the European Union. Germany is obviously one of the big powers there. No offense to everybody who I'm not going to mention on this list if you're watching from not one of these places. But Germany, France, and the UK, if it's still in the EU, that's kind of a weird thing right now. They're the power holders. Everybody, if 2 of 3 of those guys decide to do something in Europe, that's what Europe's going to do. But we already have this huge movement. Well, maybe not huge, but we have a movement going on in the European Union with Hungary and Poland. Norway, who is never part of the European Union, but is still strong on its borders and its refugee intake, which I'm sure they have been saying some things. They have some sort of sway here and there. Maybe not a huge amount, but I don't know if I said Italy. So they've been cracking down on this sort of stuff now. And that's what all of the Brexit was about, too. They were upset with the way they've been taking in refugees not economic migrants in most cases, I would assume. They were angry about this, and they voted to leave. They wanted to leave the EU. And Theresa May has done a great job with that. By the way, go you, girl. You're fantastic. So if Germany, pretty much the dominant power in Europe, because they have the biggest economy in the entirety of Europe, they're the European Union, if they decide to start closing their borders, what sort of message is this going to send to everybody else? They're not going to... If the richest country in your entire union is being like, nah, we can't take this. We can't take this anymore. And maybe not even on... there's complaints about how they're not bringing anything to the economy and how they're taking welfare while they're being excessively violent and excessively oppressive to the cultures that already exist there. And if this country decides to do it, what kind of precedent is that going to set for the countries that follow? That's about all. So, this is Almighty Cthulhu. I'm just going to sit here and wait for the stars to turn.